Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Shawn the Baptist Show for Friday, April 17th. Friday in the octave of Easter, Friday of the fifth week of pandemic time. I am Father Shawn Tunick, Shawn the Baptist. Good to be with you tonight on finally a beautiful day. It's been kind of second winter, I guess you would call it, here in Kansas City. We've had freezing temperatures and snow, kind of. Shout out to my friends up in Minnesota who have got actual snow right now. In many ways this year, it just doesn't quite seem like Easter, does it? Just because of pandemic and all the things going on there. But even the weather has kind of let us down a little bit here. To be coming to the end of April in the midst of second winter is a little bit discouraging. And probably a lot of people are feeling a little bit discouraged right now. And that's all very well. You know, I have a great counselor that I go see, and I saw her today, and, you know, everybody is really struggling a lot right now. So if you feel like you're kind of down, or it's just kind of hard to handle everything, just know that you're okay, all right? There is a lot going on, and it is hard to handle. So don't freak out. Don't worry. If it seems like you're at the end of your rope and you just don't know how you're going to go on, and maybe the best thing you can know is that you are not alone, okay? Pretty much everybody's going through that right now. You know, people are like, well, introverts are loving this. I'm kind of an introvert. You know, people are always surprised to hear that. My Myers-Briggs personality inventory type is introvert as opposed to extrovert. But that does not mean that I don't like people. And actually, I really kind of miss being with all the people. You know, little things that I like to go out and just sit in a coffee shop sometimes. And I take my iPad and my books and I go read and drink coffee. But I also see people. And especially as a priest, I mean, I'm always dressed as a priest. And so people come up and I really like those kind of spontaneous interactions that happen when you're out. And so I'm missing that. I really am. I don't get to interact with people in the same way that I used to or normally would. And it's taken a toll. And you wouldn't necessarily think that. But just so you know, your priests are in this too. And I see my good friend Emily on here saying to me, you are not alone. Beautiful message. And maybe that's a great message for everyone tonight. You are not alone. Okay, I know that this is a tough time. And you need to know that your priests are in this with you. So many people are looking to, you know, priests to tell us, like, what to do. Or, you know, priests don't have any, like, despite the maybe inherent belief in our superpowers, there's nothing that makes us any more perhaps resilient to isolation and the stress and everything that's going on. Your priests are in that too. I see Jen Hagany on, better known as Father Colin's mom. She can probably attest, having a son that's a priest who just had to celebrate the Triduum all by himself at Cure of Ars. The newly ordained priest got thrust into that. Who would have thought that? There are all kinds of people doing all kinds of things right now that we never thought we'd have to do. And it is stressful because we like our routines. We like normal. But we also know that sometimes being in our routine and normal can keep us maybe a little insulated from some of the newness of the Holy Spirit, some of the grace that God really wants to give. And so sometimes we have to get unsettled a little bit, I suppose, to take the next step forward. I was talking with my spiritual director today, and I'm always kind of marveling at the saints who go off and create new things. And particularly new religious orders. I mean, we think of Mother Teresa, you know, as a sister of charity, a sister of mercy. She was in a religious order first, in a different one, and then God called her to leave that to become a missionary of charity, and she started it. And I was telling my spiritual director today, you know, well, there were no Franciscans, that religious order, the Brothers of St. Francis. There were no Franciscans until Francis, the guy, Francis, a normal citizen in Assisi, a well-to-do one at that, decided to leave Assisi, and he literally went and lived in the swamp at the bottom of the hill. Like, everyone could look out and see Francis. And there's Francis, crazy Francis. God used that to start now the Franciscan order that is huge throughout the world, and everybody knows the Franciscans. So sometimes God gets us off our comfort zone a little bit, and then instead of running to the normal things that fill that comfort, like food or other pleasures, or even just the good things like people and conversation, and okay, maybe God is saying, hey, let me fill some of that. Turn to me, and I will fill that. So I don't know. That's just I don't have the magic answers for sure, but just so you know, your priests are in it too, and Father Colin's mom affirms no superpowers that she knows of for priests. We are Christians just like you. As St. Augustine said, for you I'm a bishop, but with you I'm a Christian. And same for priests. Sure, for you I'm a priest. But with you, I'm a Christian too, and more than that, I'm just a human being as well that, like everybody, is trying to figure out how we get by in this new normal. So there's the intro for tonight, and again, I welcome your questions, and I see lots of people on here tonight, so that's awesome. Be sure to let me know your questions. You noticed last night we got pretty interactive, and I answered a bunch of questions, but one of the things I wanted to get to tonight, I mentioned St. Mary Magdalene. Oh, she's great. In fact, if you look at my phone, oh, cool. I have lots of messages from my good friend, Matt. But my phone, I'm going to try to not log in. Okay. There's my favorite St. Mary Magdalene. Woo. And she that picture is actually by an artist, Georges de la Tour. Kind of a contemporary in the style of Caravaggio that I mentioned, but he has a painting of Mary Magdalene that is sitting there contemplating, and I love it. And I bring her up because I wanted to look tonight at a homily of St. Gregory the Great, actually, Pope St. Gregory the Great, and he's the one who I was telling you about when I say that that the Church has believed for a long, long time that Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and the sinful woman in Luke, that they're all the same Mary. Pope Gregory, way back in his day, teaches this explicitly, and we believed it since those early days. But he's got a great meditation on Mary Magdalene and the role of love. And I want to tie this into the coronavirus kind of thing that a lot of us are going through right now, because one of the sufferings is not just, being away from people and feeling a little isolated, but really not being able to be around like the people that we most love. I like my mom, she loves being a grandma. She just can't wait to be around the grandkids. And, my sister, I mentioned, kind of on the front line, those people on the front line, someone you don't think about. My sister works in the daycare at the hospital, so taking care of all the doctor's kids during the day. So she's just exposed as anybody else in the hospital. So the grandkids miss seeing grandma. We video conference and things like that on Easter, but there's a lot missing. So if you are, feeling like you're going through, you don't know quite how to describe it. You don't quite feel right. You're feeling loss. Let me suggest that this is grief. Okay, and grief, like that's when people die. Yeah, but grief, I think, is a good word that we can use to give an acceptable kind of name when we're suffering. And we want to say we're suffering because of some loss. And that doesn't have to be the loss of someone in death. It can be a temporary loss, even, like, I miss seeing my grandkids. Okay, and there are a lot of people on here who can probably relate to that. Or, kids that are suffering because I miss seeing grandma and grandpa. And so Mary Magdalene kind of came to my mind because we know that she is one who just loved Jesus. And I talked about this the other day when I talked about Jesus Christ Superstar. I was at a production of Jesus Christ Superstar, and at intermission, two of the college age kind of kids behind me got up, and I heard them talking like, were Jesus and Mary Magdalene like really a thing? You meaning like a romantic sort of relationship? And I love being out as a priest and get to spread the gospel wherever I'm at. And so there I was. And I'm like, well, actually, let me tell you about Mary Magdalene and Jesus. And they didn't even really know the Christian story. But Mary Magdalene loved Jesus intensely, enough to be at his dead body on Easter Sunday morning. Okay, but not in a way that modern society just can't keep this separate. Like, I love, therefore I have to have sex. Or you can be friends. Okay, there can be deep intimacy. Remember that Jesus, he loved his apostles more than anybody else in the whole world. There was his mom, Mary, and then there were his apostles. And notice what Jesus says, that the word that he uses to describe a love that is so deep, so strong, that he would die for them, that the word he uses is friend. Friend, not spouse, not lover, not, passion. Friend, just friend. And so Jesus uses that to describe his relationship with the apostles. So Mary Magdalene was that kind of person with Jesus. She was a deep, intimate friend. And yes, that's possible. So Mary Magdalene, as Pope Gregory tells us here, I'm just going to grab this is actually yesterday's Office of Matins from the Divine Office. And it's from Pope St. Gregory the Great. And he says that throughout the city, Mary Magdalene had been known as the sinner. So this we get from Luke, one of the who's just called a sinful woman, but Gregory is saying that's Mary Magdalene. However, it was her love of truth that prompted her to wash away the stains of sin with tears. Now, this is kind of a play on the fact that Mary washed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried them with her hair in that gospel. And so Gregory's saying how her sins, meaning her contrition, washed away the sins with her tears. Thereby she fulfilled the word of truth. Her sins, many as though they are, shall be forgiven her, because she has loved much. Notice then, if you find yourself in a position of grief, and because you have loved much, okay, if you are weeping like Mary Magdalene because of love, that's a good thing. Okay, that's why grief is really just the other side of love. Mary Magdalene is, of course, grieving over her sins, which we should have, and that we call contrition. But Mary Magdalene is also grieving because she knows she's about to lose Jesus. Mary Magdalene, of all the followers of Jesus, she gets it. I mean, Jesus has told everybody, hey, I'm going to Jerusalem, I'm going to die, they're going to crucify me. Mary Magdalene seems to be the only one who gets it and believes it, and is always, wanting to anoint Jesus and prepare him for burial. So Mary loves much. She who previously was cold because of an evil life is all afire now through love. Isn't that beautiful? We think when we talk about like burning with passion, what comes to your mind? Automatically, I think we get a negative connotation. Oh, like burning with passion, that's bad. Be in control. Don't let passion get out of control. Keep it under wraps. Be careful. All right, there is a sense in which, okay, be careful, because love, desire, passions, these things, they're really powerful. But they're not meant to be kept under wraps and control. They're meant to be directed. And so Mary Magdalene was filled with passion. Okay, she was not going to do things halfway. Notice she's described as being cold when she's in sin. Okay, now we almost think of that the opposite, don't we? Like if we're in sin, it's like, burning with passion, desire. Rather, Gregory is saying, no. To be stuck in sin is to be cold. Cold, not on fire with the love of God, allowing your passions to be misdirected. Okay, we don't want to turn off the passion. We want to turn it on. We want to fire it up. We want the passion to be blazing, and then we want it directed. We want to direct it towards the right thing. So Mary Magdalene, yes, she was passionate, but she had it redirected. She was cold in sin, and now she's burning on fire with love. When she came to the grave,
and did not find the Lord's body, she imagined that it had been taken away and went to tell the disciples. They came, looked, and believed that it actually had happened as Mary Magdalene told them. Concerning the disciples, the gospel account immediately continues. The disciples therefore went away again to their home, but Mary remained standing at the tomb weeping. Now, Gregory's going to make a big point about this. Mary stayed. Okay, so great. It was awesome already that she was the one that was there on Easter Sunday morning. That says something about her. But notice the other apostles come, they see the tomb, and then they go back. But Mary stays. Now here Gregory, he says, at this point, we must stop and reflect upon the ardent love in the heart of this woman who would not leave the Lord's grave even after his own disciples had gone away. She continued seeking him, whom she did not find. In tears, she kept searching, and afire with love, she yearned for him who she believed had been removed. Thus it happened that she alone saw him, she who had remained behind to seek him, simply because a truly good act involves the virtue of perseverance. For the lips of truth itself has said, he who perseveres to the end shall be saved. Wow, notice what happens here. Mary loves deeply. And so she is there. What does her love lead her to? It leads her to grief. She goes to the tomb to weep. And when not finding the body of the Lord, she is grieving because it's gone. She is sad. She doesn't quite yet get Jesus risen from the dead. He hasn't appeared to her. So all she has is grief. But notice how easily grief and love go together. Gregory makes it plain. She loved, and so she continued seeking. And so I think that's maybe what I offer right now in the midst of pandemic time. And, we may be feeling that I feel so much sadness because of the absence of people in my life or the absence of normality. I miss my favorite things, whatever that is. The tendency there is going to be to find something to fill that gap. To say, I don't like this feeling. Okay, I'm thrust into it, and I feel the absence. I feel grief all around. Okay, that's like the apostles who go to the tomb. They see it, and they don't know that Jesus is raised from the dead. They just see the empty tomb, and they're filled with grief. They think the Lord's body has been taken. And what do? They go away sad. They're not willing to stay in it. And I think there is the key for those of us that love and know that we love the right things. So if we're suffering because we love, that's a good suffering. And the answer is not to run away. Don't leave the tomb. Don't leave the suffering. Don't leave the grief. Stay in it. Okay, stay in it. Press into it is maybe a good word. If you are suffering because of the right thing, don't back away. Don't cool the passion. Don't turn cold and leave the tomb. Why does Mary Magdalene get to be the first one to see Jesus risen from the dead? Because she didn't run away from the suffering. She pressed into it. She's like, this is so painful. Here I am at the tomb of Jesus. It reminds her of everything that happened on Good Friday. And worse than that, the body of Jesus, the only thing she has left, has been taken away. That is painful. Okay? Everything she cares about is gone, including his body. Now she doesn't even have a grave to go to be close to at least his body. But what does Mary Magdalene do that nobody else does? She stays. She doesn't run away. She doesn't try to do something to take her mind off it. She's willing to even stay there alone. Like, I don't care if everybody else goes. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay in the pain and grief and suffering. And notice that her perseverance, therefore, is rewarded. And here's some of the most beautiful part. This is the end of St. Gregory. He says, still weeping, Mary stooped down to look into the tomb. Surely she had seen the tomb empty. Already she had announced to the disciples that the Lord had been taken away. Why then did she stoop over again to see the condition of the grave? A soul that loves is never satisfied with a single glance. The power of love urges it to continue seeking. Mary had already sought and found nothing, but she persevered and therefore found the object of her love. While she was seeking, her longing grew stronger and stronger until at its highest pitch, it was allayed in the embrace of him whom she was seeking. That's just some of the most beautiful stuff I've ever read. Isn't Mary Magdalene just incredible? And the way that Gregory interprets that, I love that little line, a soul that loves is never satisfied with a single glance. Isn't that true? I mean, we know that from a merely human standpoint. If you're just swept off your feet in love with someone, just a single glance isn't enough. We talk even when we're talking about like chastity of the eyes, to like avoid the second glance, because when something attracts us, it's not enough to see once. We want to see it again. We want to stare even and contemplate and take it in, because we're almost dazzled by love. This is the language that Gregory is using to describe Mary Magdalene, and notice it does kind of verge on, he's using romantic almost kind of language, like love is not satisfied with a single look. You want to look again. Okay, but used not in a romantic sense here, but in a sense of a good, purified love. What does Mary Magdalene's love lead to? It's the power of love that urges her to continue seeking. And I love this part about how Mary Magdalene, this is the second time that she's peered down into the tomb. Okay, notice that she goes first, finds that the tomb is empty. It says she bends down, sees, and it's empty. Goes, tells the apostles, comes back, the apostles see, it's the way Mary said. They go away, Mary's left, and it says she stoops down again to look into the tomb. And I never thought about this until I read Gregory, and he's like, why stoop down again? She already inspected the tomb. It's empty. The apostles were just there. They know it's empty. Everybody knows it's empty. Why look again? Because Mary is not afraid of the grief and the suffering that comes from the present situation. All right, this tomb shows that the body of Jesus is gone. All hope is gone. Well, that's at least the last place he was. I'm going to press into it. I'm going to look again. I'm going to keep looking. Because she's longing for Jesus. She doesn't know what to do. And I think a lot of us maybe are experiencing that right now. There's this emptiness, this longing of not feeling satisfied, of desiring something that we can't have right now to fulfill us. And it's probably a whole bunch of things. I mean, you might not even realize it, but just being taken out of all of our normal routine, just the ability to, go to the grocery store without, putting on your armor, to be able to go to school, to be with your friends, not in a Zoom conference. Maybe it's not one thing, but all that starts to mount up. And pretty soon, this oppressive cloud of grief really is coming over us. Mary Magdalene's example says, don't be afraid to look that straight in the face and say, this sucks. This is not good. I mean, I think a lot of us just want to sit and say, I've had it with this quarantine. How much longer, oh Lord? I don't know if I can keep doing this. I miss all of it. Okay. Tell God that. Relate it to him. Don't run away from it. Don't pretend like, it'll be all right. Good things are coming from the pandemic. Okay, sure, they are. Good will come. But that doesn't mean we have to pretend that Jesus died on the cross and then his body gets stolen. We don't have to pretend like, oh, it's all okay. Now, Mary's weeping. She's bawling her eyes out at an empty tomb, but she stays. She stays there and she's not afraid of it. So if you're grieving right now, don't be afraid of it. Don't think you're alone, certainly. Go call a friend. Say, I'm struggling with this. And you know what you do when you do that? You give your friend permission then to say, you know what, I'm struggling too. Really? I thought I was the only one. Now, hopefully in the pandemic time, all of us realize we're not the only one if we're struggling. But you calling up and being vulnerable to your friends to say, hey, how are you doing? And then maybe be the first one to admit, like, I'm not doing so well. Okay? How many times do we say, like, hey, how are you doing? And we don't want to know. Okay, well, that's not that kind of time. All right? It's easy to pass someone on the street and say, hey, how you doing? And we hope that they just keep walking because we don't really want to know. Well, now, we're not just passing people on the street. If you call someone up and you want to say, how are you doing? You really mean it. I mean, it's like, I want to talk to you. I want to find out how are you really doing. And let me start by saying, I need some help. I'm feeling lonely. I need somebody to talk to. I need somebody to be in some adult conversation with, not my kids right now, because I'm sick of my kids. I was on a phone call with one of my friends the other night, and it's amazing when you're talking with moms, and in the middle of the conversation, they're like, oh, Father Shawn, this. I'm like, hey, do not feed the dog cantaloupe. Sorry, I'm back. Okay, Father Shawn, let's keep going. And I'm like, wow, okay. Real life, real stuff is happening. Don't hide that. Don't be afraid of that. Mike Scherschlik in his rosaries are always saying, hey, invite people over to your home and don't clean up the house. We can't invite people to our homes right now, but we can invite them to share what's going on in their life. Okay, Mary Magdalene was alone at the tomb doing this. That's courage. Let's make sure that none of our brothers and sisters are alone in the midst of this suffering, especially our elderly. They're the ones most easily forgotten, and they're probably also the ones most fearful right now that, I have to isolate to protect myself, but I don't want to be alone. It feels awful. So let's make sure that no one really is left behind, so to speak. And I think Mary Magdalene is a great kind of example for us during this time of what it means to press in to the grief and not be afraid of it. All right. So that's a little bit Mary Magdalene and Pope St. Gregory the Great. Again, that's Thursday, the office of Matins from the 62 divine office that the priests pray. Okay, I'm going to scroll down now so I don't miss my questions. So Colin's mom says that Mary Magdalene is also her favorite. Father Colin and his siblings were all baptized on her feast. Cool. A little bit about the feast of St. Mary Magdalene, and again, why liturgically we recognize her. So in the traditional calendar, there is no feast of Mary of Bethany. There's Lazarus. He gets a feast in one of the calendars, and Martha gets a feast. But guess whose feast day is 8 days, so the active, from the feast of Martha? Mary Magdalene. Why is that? It's because Mary of Bethany goes with Martha of Bethany, and Mary Magdalene is Mary of Bethany. At least as far as the church's liturgy is concerned, as far as Pope Gregory is concerned, we've always believed that. So it's not that you have to believe that, again, as I said the other night, but just so you know, if you want to believe that Mary of Bethany and Mary Magdalene are the same person, you would be in good company, because that's what the whole church believed for most of our history. And I'm kind of convinced myself. But Father Mark is not. So we have these biblical kind of debates here. So Father Mark and I are having some great kind of biblical debates, and we'll have him back on the show again soon as well. All right, I'm looking for questions out there. I don't see any. We're coming up on the 7 o'clock hour, the 30-minute mark. I don't know if any of that was helpful or not. I was just so moved by this reading about Mary Magdalene, and maybe because she's a favorite of mine, but Jen is saying that she relates to Mary Magdalene's freedom to cry to and for our Lord. Isn't that, I love those two prepositions, to and for our Lord. Yeah, Mary Magdalene doesn't try to hold it together. How many times does our society tell us if we're feeling great emotion and grief to the point that we would want to cry? Oh, get it together. Hold it together. Come on, stop weeping. In fact, they have a word in French, I'm told, that they'll refer to people who cry a lot as weeping like a Magdalene, because Mary Magdalene was known to weep a lot. I had a friend once who referred to herself as so-and-so who cries. if you are someone who feels like you are, Jen who cries, you're in good company because that's Mary Magdalene. And I think guys, dudes, manly men out there, it's okay for you too. All right. I love in the Passion of the Christ where John is at the foot of the cross with Mary Magdalene, and John is bawling his eyes out. Okay? That just means we're overwhelmed with emotion and grief. Good. I know men are not so cool with emotion. Like, I'm tough. I got it under control. Don't. That's exhausting. Don't always try to have your emotion under control. Mary Magdalene didn't. What did it get her? It got her the ability to see Jesus first. How about that? Mary Magdalene's character is highlighted in the new video series, The Chosen. Have you seen it? What do you think? Oh, Emily, you should watch the Shawn the Baptist show more often because I love The Chosen. In fact, just last night we spotlighted it a little bit so that everyone could see it. Mary Magdalene is so awesome in the series The Chosen. I about lost it crying at the end of episode 1. It is just good stuff, and I you got to watch it. I don't want to spoil it, but and who would think that like you could spoil the Bible, but you kind of could. So go watch The Chosen. It's free now. You can find the live streams that they did on YouTube. I bought it as a DVD for a friend of mine the other day in the mail. I finally watched all of it. So I've seen all 8 episodes, and they're crowdfunding season 2. So please go support it because I want to see what else happens. Kind of like a couple years ago, Roma Downey and her husband did AD, The Bible Continues, because they did the Bible series that showed on TV. And then they did AD, The Bible Continues, and I loved it. And then it wasn't popular enough to get a second season, so it just died. I was like so upset because I like really loved like the Barnabas character in there and everything. Allison is asking, how do we get The Chosen? Go to thechosen.tv if you're on your website, or if you're on your phone or tablet, you can go to the App Store and look for the app just called The Chosen. As I mentioned, YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. They did a live stream there. It is through VidAngel, as Jen Hagany is saying. But the first episodes, the first 8, are on YouTube because they did a little live stream last week. So that's a great way to get it. And as Teresa's pointing out, there's the app. In fact, the app is kind of the way I started watching it, because what happens is if you pay it forward for someone else, what will happen is like you get to watch it for free. And you're like, wow, that's cool. I get to watch a movie for free? Kind of. Someone paid for you to watch it for free. And you get a little message saying, this episode was paid for you by so-and-so. And then after I watched like 4 of them, they're like, hey, would you pay it forward for somebody else to watch the first 4 episodes for free? I'm like, heck yeah. And so I did. And then I got a little message telling me that so-and-so just watched an episode of The Chosen because you bought it for them. Isn't that cool? So yeah, Jen, we should have a watch party someday. Get in touch with this Mary Magdalene character. If you don't know Mary Magdalene, real life human being, full of passion, not cold in sin, on fire. On fire is good. En fuego. We want to be on fire. We just want it directed, okay? Fires can be dangerous. They tend to burn out of control if they're not directed. But if they're directed, fire is a good force. Yeah. I did some Hebrew translation for them. It was fun. Jen, you did Hebrew translation for The Chosen? Cool. I don't know. I didn't know that Father Colin's mom knows Hebrew. We'll have to have her on the show, and we can talk some Hebrew. I've forgotten all my Hebrew. I actually studied Hebrew in seminary, but I've forgotten it all. So, speaking of friends and calling one of my dear close friends, Matt Chemnitz, is flashing up on my screen that he is calling me. So you know what I'm going to do after the Shawn the Baptist show ends, almost immediately? I am going to go talk to Matt, my friend who works for School of Faith. They're doing the great stuff with the dailyrosary.net. Check that out. Matt Chemnitz there was my roommate when I was a software engineer, and we've been great friends for the last 20 years. And he just called me up. Maybe he's watching this show, and he's like, I should call Father Shawn. So I'm going to go talk to my friend when I'm done, and I invite you to do the same. Pick up your phone, find someone who might be in their grief, and call their name. That's what Jesus did with Mary Magdalene. He's like, Mary, and she gets it, and she turns around, she sees him. She's like, Rabbi? And it's him. And just in that encounter, grief is gone, and presence is there. So you go be presence for someone tonight, okay? We had some good interaction there tonight, so thanks for the commenters. Shout out to Emily Lopez. Maybe I'll have her on the show here soon. She is the lead consultant for the Office of Evangelization of the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas. And she is doing super great work to amidst the pandemic time to make sure that we're all still having the tools that we need to spread the faith. So shout out to Emily. All right. I got my coffee. That's helping me get through these days in the cold. It's going to warm up. Okay. Things are going to get better. They will. But I don't know that we're really to Good Friday exactly yet. Even in the midst of this, we talk about peak day, whatever. Your day may still be coming where it's just like, I've had it. I can't do anymore. Lord, into your hands I commend my spirit. I'm done. Okay, good. Don't shy away from it. Press into it. Go through it with friends. You got your Simon of Cyrene that's going to help you carry the cross. Know who that is. And then don't be afraid to weep. Bawl your eyes out. Yell at God. Do all that. Be passionate. And then like Mary Magdalene, the one who is passionate, who wants the second look, who is not satisfied with running away from the grief, but presses into it. Well, she who loved much was rewarded much. She got to be the first one to see Jesus. And that's what the reward of passionate love is. I pray that you can know that kind of passionate love for Jesus, because that's really what grief is. It's the other side of passionate love. And passionate love is good, even if it leads to grief when we're denied for a time the fulfillment of that love. But we know where we're all headed. We're all headed towards heaven, where that passionate love is fulfilled perfectly forever. So if we don't stir up the passion in this life, we don't get the joy of heaven. So if there's grief now, good. You're on the right path. Be with others in their grief, watch at the tomb and wait for the Lord to call your name. I'm going to go call my friend Matt and say hi to him. This has been the Shawn the Baptist Show for Friday, April 17th in Holy Week of the Octave of Easter. Friday of the 5th week of pandemic time. We're getting through it, folks. Until tomorrow, may the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit come down on you and remain with you forever. St. John the Baptist, pray for us. Good night, everybody.